and then welcoming people. Hey, Andre. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm well.
How come in the other room I saw a person?
What?
How come in the other room I saw a person being projected? Is there a delay?
I don't know.
Or maybe it's just my mind.
Ghost.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Great, so are you?
Oh, wow. Cool.
You at Susan?
And I drove him back and forth.
Is that fun?
So that was like.
Is that fun? I had that opportunity too. What a great thing, though.
4 more hours.
One of them, she's like, yeah, I'm sure. Oh, great. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but now I got those Fridays, so. Well, they called me and it was 12, and I wrote it down. So I was looking for.
Screens?
The first week.
Yeah.
And do some legal work and stuff like that. And then I got cousins in Florida, so mom was in Venice. Cold sound on the Atlantic coast. I'm a visiting cousin in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah. You think it's gonna be more than that?
She worked hard. I didn't think that we was.
Mosquitoes have been pretty bad. They don't even get bad until your sun's down.
Okay, we can.
No matter how hard. Break. Happy to be there.
Pretty strict.
Oh, yeah, good to see you too. Oh, please.
I'm Will.
Well,
I actually been in Florida all summer.
I've been back up there for like 6 months.
In July.
See the.
I miss all my favorite dances and I miss my
Well, whatever you've done with that. Come back.
One more.
Another week long.
Yeah, I can't take another week off.
I think you guys would fill in from the front. It's something we've been meaning to do for years and have never done. So it means like start in the front.
No, this is where I sit.
If you must, I'm not going to stop you. You're it's a free country.
He's actually
Good luck with that. Hopefully they normal.
Yeah, this is.
It's another hour.
Like practice session,
I'm actually here for like a handful of different places. I just moved here last year. Stephen, I wrote some steam today, so that's why I'm going to have you as well. So I should do it. I'll get a little bit more of my. I'm excited.
I'm interested. This is only my second, like, real life visit, but I've seen the live stream. Have you been?
Okay, good. How's your, are you there for 6 weeks as well?
Yeah, but that's coming to the end of August 3rd.
So,
Oh,
Just about, yeah, it's been an incredible year. Yeah, feels like a little sad. I'm also excited because I kind of get back.
We're doing a new thing where we're filling from
practice.
Yeah, we would need it to.
Yeah.
For months. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'll be
How you
in
doing?
on yeah. I don't think I'll be at the 7 days. So, yeah. I mean, I would love to do a she's at a retreat, but I just can't do it. Work right now, you know, it's always a good excuse. I might be able to find something. So.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Sit. As most of you know, the Sunday Sit is put on by the residents of the Monastic Academy, and it's an opportunity to learn this week from Sunday Sit for a while. So I hope everybody here enjoys it. So, welcome.
Last week, we talked about how to live our vows. How is it that we can completely give our lives away? This is a question that if we truly ask it, we put our lives at risk. And it's important to know that up front. If you're going to ask the question, how do I fulfill my vow? How do I complete my responsibility to the world? Then the life that you have now is in danger. It's important to know that. Some of you may have had the experience of losing your life somehow. So that's what you're signing up for. If you ask, how can I fulfill my vow? Fulfilling our vow means living with honesty. And last week I talked quite a bit about the importance of living with honesty, in particular, keeping our word. When I was a kid, for reasons I don't know, I decided that I should be honest. I concluded that I should be an honest person. However, it was a little confusing because at the same time I was a very angry kid. Especially as a teenager, I was very angry. And that anger expressed itself in various ways. And one of the ways that but today's the day of stories, was that I think it's okay to say his name. I had a good friend of mine named Josh. When we were just about to enter high school, right on our way into high school, we're going to enter high school the next day. Went to the store and bought a very large quantity of laxatives and went to the high school and figured out how to break into it. night, we actually did break in very skillfully through door after door and lock after lock until we the food area, and through various ingenious methods, we put all of those laxatives into the food. And then we incredibly skillfully, I don't know how we did it, looking back, putting everything back together, and left, went back to his house, went to sleep. And then there was just one day left before we were going to enter high school. Sometime in the morning, my father just mentioned, innocently, as he does, his innocent voice, "Oh, noticed you and Josh were at the school yesterday. Just looking around. I happened to drive past. I saw you guys. What were you up to?" Well, I made a commitment. I explained the whole thing. I said, well, you know, we're angry kids. And so we thought it would be beneficial in some way to put laxatives into the food in the school. So we, with enormous, shocking alacrity, broke in through door after door and lock after lock and figured out how to put all of those laxatives into the, you can just sit there. Put all of that, you know, fix it up, and then we left. And of course, as you probably remember, my father was very angry. And he and my mother over here, due to their great kindness and skill, made sure that it, A, didn't get on my permanent record. So thank you. Well done. And 2, the food was removed and nobody was poisoned. And the rest, there was a long story after that. Things that happened and consequences of that, which are useful to talk about perhaps at some point. But today, the important thing to say is that because I had loving, supportive parents, I was able to safely, and because I was able to safely be honest, I was able to get to the point when honesty was a habit and get to a point where I could trust myself. I could trust my own word. So it wasn't simply that other people could trust what I was saying, but that I myself could trust what I was saying, and that I discovered is the most important thing in our lives. Now, as I say, I was an angry kid. And I was angry at one thing, as far as I can remember. I think I was angry at a bunch of things, ostensibly, but really I was angry at one thing, as far as I can tell looking back. I was angry at human beings, angry that human beings are destroying life. I was angry that human beings aren't appalled at our behavior. Angry that human beings are so weak and confused that we allow this to continue day after day, year after year, century after century, millennium after millennium, destroying life. If there's one single pattern that's most clear if you look back at the past 50, it's that human beings are the most dangerous species on this planet. And I wouldn't have it. Now, of course, it doesn't make sense to express that anger by breaking into a building and putting laxatives into food. True, so I was 13 or 14, I guess. And that isn't really an excuse, that's just the reality. As I got older, though, I came to see something that's very hard to see, something that often requires this practice in order to see. And that is that there's no one else to blame. There isn't someone else who has these problems. There isn't some other person who is destroying life on the planet. All of the evil in the world can be found in my own heart. With that terror, with that sadness, with that realization of our own fallibility, and our own immaturity, we can then look out at others and see with humility that we are really sick. We're sick at a level that is very difficult to accept. And it's important for us to face that and spend some time trying to accept the deep mental illness. We're so easily distracted, deflected from that reality, from the fact that we get confused about things that don't matter in order to avoid the things that do. We get involved in things that we don't care about in order to our truest love. We don't want to risk our lives. We're not willing to forsake our selfishness for the benefit of life on earth. And I entered the monasteries that I entered in Japan because I couldn't accept that. And I needed to put myself in a situation where I could test myself every day. Do I actually care or not? So I can face that. Do I actually care or not? To look at that very clearly. And to do that in a monastery is pretty easy. I mean, it's pretty easy. You just do what you do. You just follow the schedule and notice if you start complaining about how hard it is and I'm so tired and I'm in so much pain and I'm so hungry and I'm so confused and I deserve better. And that's great because every time that comes up, you have your answer. I certainly got my answer thousands of times. And you get that answer thousands and thousands of times, and the desperation increases and increases. If we're willing to be honest, if we're willing to be loving, desperation increases and increases and increases until eventually could only see this pain, this stain, this confusion, this disease. I'd look at the clouds and see beauty, and then I'd flying across and see that is not the same. There's selfishness there. There's greed there. There's ignorance there. I'd look at the beautiful snow of the winter and see human footprints. It's not the same. It is not the same. And it took a while for me to break through the shallow philosophical excuses of, oh no, it is really the same, everything's nature. That I wanted to tell myself. It's all okay. Don't worry about it. Everything's okay. It's all good. That apathetic immaturity was very hard to cut through. But if you have to, you do. And so I required myself to find what is it that allows the human mind to be as beautiful already was. So, in order to pursue this completely, I went to a little stone hut in the mountains, in the Himalayas, and did a lot of meditation. And I couldn't do it. Some of you may know what this is like. You just come to the end. You don't have anything left. And you realize you did it all. You did it all just like they told you to. And it didn't work. And you don't have anything left to do it with. You're at the end. Fundamentally, whether we like it or not, the purpose of this community is to bring each of us to that point. And generally we don't like it. But that's what this is. Because we're not really at the end of our ropes. We think we are, of course. We're so tired, because we're so busy carrying around something so heavy. The thing is our ego. If we carry around something that heavy, then of course we're tired. Put it down. But if we do put it down, then we suddenly find that we have a new source of energy. And it's necessary for us to do that because the earth is at the end. And it's not. Because she's carrying around an ego. Unless you say that it's because she's carrying us around. So in that place of pain and vulnerability, I can't explain. Recalled that there was a time when my mother was in the car with my father and the teacher who was the most important person in saving my life and giving me my life back. And they were driving, and there was an issue with traffic. There was some confusion. It appeared that in just a second, just a moment, they were going to die. They were going to get into a crash, and all of them died. So my parents were both people of great sacrifice and wisdom. And in that moment, right before what seemed to be death, my mother's apparent final thought, and obviously they didn't get into the accident, but as far as she knew, her final thought was, no, you all call me Soryu, but she named me Teal. Teal. And she thought for Teal. Yeah. All three of the most important people in his life are going to die at the same time. And the shift that happened at that moment was a shift of finally, utterly losing self-pity. I thought, how can you, with such wonderful parents and such a wonderful teacher, be complaining about the results of your practice? How can you dare to think that you deserve better? Are you going to do this or not? And I answered, you're going to do this. This is it. You're going to do this practice now. And you're not going to stop, even if it kills you. You just lost this one. This is it. This is the end of your game. This is over. It's over. You can't complain anymore. You don't deserve to complain. So, do it. Do it now, even if it kills you. Because at least that is an honorable death. And so I threw myself into it. And I have to tell you, it's very important for you to know that if you haven't been through that, things don't change. And if you've been through that, things immediately change. And I went from horror and desperation within a few hours, experiencing still the same rigor, of course, the same uncompromising lack of self-pity. But mysteriously, in a way that I couldn't understand because I wasn't paying attention, because I couldn't pay attention to anything. I couldn't pay attention to anything. I refused to pay attention if I needed to drink or eat or go to the bathroom. It's not my problem anymore. Somehow, in a way that I don't know, it's important that you hear that. In a way that we don't know, that terror was peace and joy. And by the next day, it was the greatest peace and joy I had ever experienced. And by the next day, it was so much peace and joy that I didn't know how to fit it into my body. And by the next day, it was more wonder, more happiness than I had ever experienced. Even if you added together all of the happiness experience in my whole life. It was just a small fraction of the amount that I was experiencing in every minute. But the work had to continue. There wasn't time to consider that. Wasn't time to even have a single thought. This is joy. Couldn't think about it for a moment because there was no time. Because this is it. You lose now. And eventually, I wrote a poem about this. I'd like you to hear this poem. A poem with this. When you walk outside on a clear spring day, and the wind brushes your robes, and you look up into the vast and see one small cloud. That's the most wonderful thing in the world. All the Buddhas and sages should die for that cloud. Well, I myself didn't fully understand that poem composing it. But that realization came. I had been training there for a number of months, solitary in the mountains. I don't know why. I can't tell you why. But I can't tell you why. But for some reason, well, there's nothing I like more than the mountain. That's my favorite thing in the whole world. I love mountains. And you've been living here in the Himalayas. Best mountain. Well, if you've ever been there, the only mountains in the world. Hills. Rockies are just compared to that. So there I am in the mountains. I haven't taken a single hike yet. It's time to take a hike. Come on, it's gonna be okay. Take a hike. And so one morning I set out and I walked up along the stream that flowed past my little hut. And I walked up past the upper monastery where the more serious training takes place. And then I walked up along the stream. And you understand this is a stream, and then there's the mountain, and there's the mountain. And going up it somehow, how do they do it? I don't know. You have to wonder if they even exist really, or if they're just figments of our imagination. Somehow the mountain goats can just run up it. They just saunter, jog, dance up an impossible cliff and leave little trails and little trails. Continue on up that stream. And I could see way up above, far, far away, very top, I could see a rock formation that looked just like this. It looked like two hands that had, for my time there, given me great comfort because they really looked like two hands. And I felt that the mountains were holding me, were carrying me. And I set off in the direction of the hands. And I continued up further and further. And I came to a series of caves where monks had probably been meditating for centuries, could see the indications that they had been there. So happy to see, here it is. This is it. This is the center of the world right here. This is where it really happens. This is it. So nice to be here. And I kept going up and up. And as I went up, things became a bit steeper and came over a ridge. And I could turn around and look back and see a new mountain range that I'd never seen before. Some of you may know what this is like. You go up at elevation and see, oh, there's another mountain range. I couldn't see it, but now I can see it. But it is there, even though I couldn't see it, but now I can see it. It's there. And then I kept going up higher and higher, and then I could turn around again. Oh, another, those are even higher mountains. Amazing. There they are. And I kept going up higher and higher until I came to the valley. Hands were right there above me. And I looked around and I saw a rock formation, many rock formations that are very hard to explain. They look like dandelions right before you blow on them, and all the little pieces, all the rocks, because rocks with a very straight and narrow cleavage were sticking straight up, and then it was very dry. It was a desert, but sometimes it snows and rains, and then it would fall on the top, and it would go in and freeze, and then split it. And so a single cylinder of rock would start to split, but then at the tops of each of those cylinders also would split. And they'd be going up almost parallel to the ground, all the way up, so it's like a sphere, but then each of the top of them split. This is all rock, gray rock. And it's real. I took one little piece of it just to believe that this could have happened, that this could be real. And there were hundreds of them. The whole valley is filled with rock flowers. And I climbed up further and found a rock platform, which was the favorite resting spot and dining spot of a snow leopard, which I had come into contact with earlier in my time there. And I knew that because there were a lot of remains of goats right around there. And I took the liberty of standing on that platform, and I bowed to the hand. And right as I put my hands together, this really happened. A golden eagle flew straight through the two rocks, straight over my head, just as I was bowing, and circled above, and then took a current and flew away. And so I spent some time there. Doing this and that, and then I started to head back down. And I went back to the stream. Springtime. This springtime, which is May or June. And there was just a little bit, and this is at about it's not very high, it's about 16,000 feet, which in the Himalayas isn't particularly high. But there was still some snow, and there was snow on top of the stream, which had frozen. And I got on the stream, and I stood on the snow. And I discovered that the stream, and given the amount of snow and the surface of the ice underneath it, exactly the right angle for me to slide down it without ever speeding up or slowing down. And I slid on it without taking a step for miles. And sometimes, of course, it gets steep, but I got better at it. I could actually slide down waterfalls. I just slide right down and then get and slide, and take the next one. I slid down and slid down and slid down until I came to a place where I knew I couldn't be on the ice anymore because I had previously broken through it. So I so easily directed myself and slid off of it. There on that absolutely brown dirt of that alpine desert. And I turned around and I noticed that there were some tracks there in the snow. There were some tracks there in the snow. Somebody left some tracks there in the snow. And there was absolutely nothing about them that was less beautiful than the mountains themselves. And so I know it's possible. People can do it. It's possible. We can do this. And so it became time to leave. That was an enormous sacrifice, which I don't say in order to complain. Nothing to complain about at all. But I am saying it because it's important to know. It's important for us to understand this. It is important. So I have to say it aloud. And I have to say it aloud about myself because it's not possible in this case to talk about someone else. So I apologize for this. But it's important to say it. If you consider talking to someone and saying, hi there, tell you what, you can be of service to the world. You can make a difference. And all you have to do is give up all of the happiness that you will ever experience for the rest of your life. That's all. All of it. Right now. Are you willing to do that? Understand that it's the same sacrifice. Talking to someone who's in that situation, who has access to an amount of happiness in one day that most people don't experience for their entire life. And you tell them, tell you what, want to give all that up? Be of service? It's important to understand the significance of saying yes to that. It's important to understand that. Not about pity or something. It's important to understand it directly. Because, as I said last time, as I said last week, the fundamental delusion of the modern world is that human experience is at the center of it. That human experience gives meaning to the world. I know a scientist who does testing on mice, kills them to do testing. And she actually said this. She said, well, actually, because I was talking to her about it, and she said, well, actually, I'm sort of proud that I kill the mice in this way, because this is how I give their lives meaning. If I wasn't using them to serve people, they'd just be mice, and mice have no meaning. but because they're living in service of human beings, their lives have meaning. And so I am giving them the most valuable thing. Meaning. This is where we're at right now. We deeply believe that we are the measure of all things. And as I said last time, there are three basic decoys in this worldview that will prevent us from finding our vow, will prevent us from fulfilling our purpose. The first is, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself is a trick. Don't believe it. It's a way of preventing you from realizing your vow. We deeply believe in it. We think, I should listen to myself. Push come to shove, when things are tough and I don't know what to do, gotta listen to myself. Why? What is it about the voice in your head that's more true than anything else? Or, be true to your dreams. Be true to your dreams. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that I achieve my goals, my aspirations. That's what's most important. That's what I need to do. That's what should run my life. In fact, it's the supreme authority, my dream. Success in my life would be making the world the way I think it should be. That would be success. I have a picture in my mind, and if I could convert the world into that idea, I would have succeeded at being of service. And finally, follow your heart. Follow your heart is a trick. Again, what is it about your heart, about the feelings in your chest, that has some kind of authority over the world? What would that be? It's just passing body sensations. Like it or not, that's what it is. And so if we follow our hearts and we do what we feel is right, it will become very difficult for us to fulfill our purpose. The decoy. The decoy that leads us away from our vow and into the grips, the snares, the traps of our societal assumptions. The very assumptions that have gotten us into this mess. It's essential for us to use this practice to go beyond all of that. For us to use this practice to cut through all of that, to abandon all of that and find something more trustworthy. Find something that we can truly trust. This is hard work. This is sacrifice. And as we talk about this community, a community which exists for the experience and the development of both awakening, spiritual transcendence, and responsibility, social transformation. As we consider the significance of this community, of joining this community, it's important for us to understand that this community is here to be sure that we make the sacrifices needed in order for us to realize our purpose. And what is the technique that is most useful? If it isn't, listen to yourself, be true to your dreams, and follow your heart. If it isn't that, what is it? What is it? In my experience, I would suggest that it is be true to your word. Keep your word. Keep If you promise something, if you commit to something, that's the end. That's the end of your life. Every time we make a commitment, we give away our lives. And it's our job to be true to that. And if we understand that, most people start making many fewer commitments. Because we realize the significance of our words, the significance of our deeds. And we hold ourselves to account. And in that way, by doing that, we come to trust ourselves more. And because of that, we're capable of forming true friendships. And it's by forming true friendships that we achieve our vow. Because it turns out that the world doesn't need our vow. The world is our vow. We don't need to turn it into our vow. We don't need to change it so that it is our vow. It is our vow. It's our job to realize that. And we realize that through friendship. We realize friendship through trustworthiness. It turns out that the world doesn't need our wisdom. The world is wisdom. It already is wisdom. It doesn't need us to provide it with wisdom. It doesn't need us to provide it with meaning. If we're looking at it from that perspective, the stains on our footprints are clear. So, what is it that's bigger than our hearts? Well, I wrote a poem about that also. So I'd like to share that poem with you. At one time, I realized that my heart extending reverberates in all things. But immediately, frantically, I asked, what is bigger than my heart? Now I know. This is bigger than my heart. There's a colon. Because this is the next thing I'm going to say is it. I'm about to tell you. I'll start over. There's a colon. At one time, I realized that my heart, extending throughout the universe, reverberates in all things. Immediately, frantically, I asked, what is bigger than my heart? Now I know. This is bigger than the heart. At one time, I went shopping early in the morning. And outside the shop, some children were playing with toy cars. Take a moment to straighten up and settle in. and bring forth a sense of compassion, a sense of love, a sense of friendship that you can feel in your body, perhaps supported by something that you're thinking in your mind. If you'd like, feel free to support it with thinking, but in any case, attend to the feeling of compassion in your body. The important thing is not to have a lot of it. The quantity doesn't matter. The quality matters. Is it compassion? Is it love? One way to bring it up is to simply say the word love in your mind and see how that resonates in your body. Another is to bring up the picture of someone you love and look at them in your mind and see how that reverberates in your body. And for many of us, it's possible to simply directly bring up love, friendship, compassion in our bodies and feel that. Give yourself the opportunity to sink into this feeling of love. And use that foundation of love gently, firmly give rise to the motivation for honesty. How is this done? I leave to you. How is it that love causes us to be honest? Explore that, discover it, and follow it. Pay attention to that question, answer it, and live that answer right now. Use that now. Use that to turn your attention away from yourself to the world. And do that, if you like, by sitting here, but if possible, do it by walking around outside. As you walk for about 5 minutes outside, pay attention. Pay attention to what you see and feel and hear, setting yourself aside, setting aside the thoughts and emotions that make up our sense of self. Pay attention to the flowers and the grasses and the birds and the sun. Pay attention. Seeing it just as it is. That's honesty. To see it just as it is. Without fitting it into what we think about it. See each thing just as it is. I'll ring the bell and then we'll have the chance to walk around, or if we'd like to sit here practicing this method. And after several minutes, I'll ring the bell again and we'll come back and continue a seated practice. open your awareness to the entirety of your sensory experience. And ask a question and then answer it in a very specific way. First, answer it immediately. Next, simply attempt, try, attempt to answer it accurately, and answer it in terms of 3 categories. The question is, what is this? What is this experience? And the answer is either seeing, hearing, or feeling. Seeing means that the experience that we're having right now is something that we are seeing. That might be a thought in our minds, a fantasy or a memory, a picture, an image. It might be something in the world. It might be looking at the rug or the floor, some other object. But we're seeing something in our minds or in the world, and that's seeing. This is seeing. What is this? Seeing. It might be hearing. Hearing means a voice in our minds, a tune, some other internal auditory sensation. It may be a sound in our environment, nature, of people in the room, of traffic. In any case, that's hearing. And so we answer the question, what is this? With the answer, hearing. And then body sensations, whether emotional or physical, and in fact, any other sensory experiences, such as smells, for example, will fit into the feeling category. It's a convenient way of keeping this to 3 categories for practical purposes. So there are 3 categories into which all sensory experience fits: seeing, hearing, and feeling. And your task as you practice is to ask the question, answer it immediately, answer it as accurately as you can, which doesn't necessarily mean accurately. It simply means that you're attempting to answer it accurately, and answer it in terms of those 3 categories. So, within your mind, you may experience something like this. What is this? Seeing. What is this? Seeing. What is this? Hearing. What is this? Seeing. What is this? Feeling. And you continue like that. That's the technique. The technique that allows us to practice honesty. And once again, establish your posture by straightening up and settling in, and then begin that technique. Very good. Now we'll use that technique in order to practice not only honesty in the aspect of accurately answering questions, but also honesty in terms of keeping our commitments. This is our chance to make a commitment about this practice. If you feel uncomfortable making a commitment at this time, then there's no need to do it. But if you would like to, this is your opportunity to commit to asking that question and then answering it one time. Not more than one time, one time. You can, if you wish, make that commitment to yourself. If you make that commitment to yourself, follow through. Ask it and answer it according to the guidelines. If you don't feel that you can make that commitment, don't. But if you'd like to, you're invited to commit to that. And then to do it. If you'd like, at this time, make that commitment and then follow through. Ask the question and answer it one time. Very good. And now, take a break. That can be very strenuous. Make a solemn vow and then follow through on it regardless of circumstances. So, for a little while, take a break. Simply rest. Allow yourself to recover from that astonishing leap of faith. For now, there's no need to do any technique unless you'd like to. Simply resting. Very good. Now, if you'd like, you're invited to make a commitment again. If you prefer not to make a commitment to yourself, don't do it. But if you'd like, you can make a commitment to answer this question one time or two times. Maximum of 2 times. 1 is fine, or 2. You can decide for yourself the challenge level that you'd like. There's no challenge in this particular way. A challenge of 1 question and answer, or asking and answering again. But if you commit, follow through. Follow through at the risk of your life. If you don't want to do that, don't do that. It's fine. There's no need to. No one is pressuring you to do that. But you're invited to do that. So at this time, if you'd like, commit to asking and answering this question 1 time or 2 times. And once you've made that commitment, follow through. Very good. Once again, take some time to rest. Very good. Now you're invited to commit to asking and answering one time, or 2 times, or 3 times. Consider the challenge level that you prefer at this time. There's no pressure. The most important thing is that you follow through on your commitment. There's a way of absolutely guaranteeing that you will not fail to follow through on this commitment, and that is don't make a commitment. It's only if you feel strong and stable, clear and vibrant, that there's the opportunity to make this clear commitment. So it's fine if you don't want to. No problem. It's fine. Sometimes in life, we don't have this luxury, but right now we do. So take advantage of it. If you'd like, commit to asking the question, what is this? Then answering it immediately, attempting to answer it accurately, and answering it within those 3 categories, with one of those 3 words, seeing, hearing, or feeling. You may do this 1 time. You may do this 2 times. You may do this 3 times. And of course, there's no need to commit at all. But if you commit, follow through. So now you're invited to make that commitment, if you'd like. And if you do, follow through on it. Very good. And once again, give yourself the opportunity to rest. And one last time, if you'd like, commit. Asking and answering 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times, no more than 3 times. If you commit, follow through. You're invited to begin now. Very good. And that done, give yourself a few minutes to continue with that technique without any commitment. Give yourself the opportunity to do it, if you'd like. Friends, this is time for conversation, discussion, questions, answers, reports, and anything else you'd like. This is your time. We have 20 minutes. Enjoy, yes.
So when I was 15 years old, my mother said to me, "Just lie to me, please."
Mhm.
And I said, "Okay."
Right.
And that set me
Yeah.
on a long and checkered journey of conflict between honesty and keeping my word.
Yeah.
Now, many decades later, I've come to some agreement with that and an understanding of how that works.
Mm.
But even still, sometimes when I'm keeping my word, by not necessarily being honest,
Mhm.
I feel
Right.
that conflict.
Absolutely.
And I guess maybe we're never sure which is the right way to do it.
Mm. This is a skill. And for us in our culture, I think that that's hard to understand. isn't so much a rule as it is a skill. Being honest is a skill, and it's difficult to acquire that skill. Knowing how to be honest, knowing how to keep our word is very subtle. Of course, for the sake of teaching, for the sake of making a bunch of simple doctrines that people can remember, it's what people want, you know? It's such a struggle for me personally, and I know for many other people in my position. People want a bunch of simple guidelines that are right, and just follow it, and then I'll be right. And it's difficult because that's what's demanded. And even there's a skill in knowing how to provide something that isn't a lie, but certainly doesn't carry the significance and the subtlety of truth. It's just a bunch of rules, really. The thing is, people are correct to ask for that. We don't have those guidelines. We typically have very large problems. It's very useful to have those guidelines, and so it's useful to think of these as skills, as things that we work on, as things that we gradually come to understand and gradually come to accomplish. A story that my mother asked for at the end of last week's talk might be useful here. I think it probably is useful. So you can tell me if this is useful or not. The Buddha, as many of you may know, was, before his awakening, before he became a Buddha, he was a prince of a small kingdom in the northern part of the Indian subcontinent. That's a very interesting story in itself. Extremely interesting, actually, and worth looking at very closely. The story of his life, and in particular, of his leaving home. Very important to look at that carefully, not superficially. But he did leave home, and having left home, he realized awakening, became a Buddha, and kept his word and went back to the palace to teach his father, his, for all intents and purposes, mother, although his birth mother had passed away when he was a baby, and his wife and his son, along with many other people who probably lost it. So when he went back, his son, who was 7 or so, left the palace with him and became a monk at that young age. And soon after he became a monk, the Buddha, his father, went to him and gave him personal instruction. The first personal instruction he had received, other than the basic training precepts, the basic format of being a monk. And he said something, the Buddha said something very impressive. I know this is taking a little while, but I think it's a useful story. I think it's so impressive because I lived in India for a few years, and while I was there, I was taking care of 30 little boys. That was my main job. Take care of 30 little boys. That's a big job. And one of my jobs in taking care of them was to teach them the Dharma, to teach them the Buddha Dharma. And so I tried. I took the teachings and the texts and I tried to tell it in a way that an 8-year-old would appreciate, and it didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work. And so finally, I got to this one text in which the Buddha taught his son, who happened to be 7 or so. And I taught that text, and they completely got it. And it makes me think that probably it's real. Yeah, so probably this is real because it actually worked. So this is the way he taught. He got to the place, and Rahula, his son, had set out some water for the Buddha to wash his feet, because India is really dusty, and so you wash your feet all the time. So he had some water for him to wash his feet and a place for him to sit down. And that's just the appropriate way to treat your teacher. And the Buddha used most of the water to wash his feet, but left a little bit in there. Yeah. I will demonstrate this. I demonstrated it there, and it worked really well. There you go. Left a little water in the container, the vessel. And having done that, he did something terrifying. Yes? And he threw away the water. And he asked Rahula, what did I just do? And this is a perfect question for a 7-year-old. It's so good. The 7-year-old knows that something important just happened and can answer the question. You ask someone younger, some of you may have worked with kindergarten students, for example. They don't have any idea what's going on. They're just going to look at you, maybe, am I correct? This is a very hard question for a kindergarten. 5-year-old, it's not going to happen. They just know that something is wrong, and it's terrifying. Someone who's older, like you, probably will come up with a complex philosophical theory. But a 7-year-old will say, you threw the water away. And I know, because I did it with this group of kids, and they answered, you threw the water away. And the Buddha said, that's correct. And in just the same way, a person of training who tells a deliberate lie has thrown away their training. Very strong. And then he had the vessel, and he showed it to Rahula. Showed him, and he said, what is in this vessel? Now, I threw the water away. What's in it? And again, I did this, and they answered correctly. Nothing, it's empty. If you ask an adult, then I say, the whole universe, or something like that. But a kid gets it. So, but nothing, it's empty, it's hollow. Nothing there. And he said, exactly. And in just the same way, a person of training who would tell a deliberate lie, their training is hollow and empty. There's nothing in it. And then he took the vessel and he turned it upside down and put it down. And asked Rahula, what have I just done? Yes, and again, he could answer correctly. So you turn the vessel upside down. So that's right. And in just the same way, a person of training who would tell a deliberate lie has turned their training upside down, has made it worthless. It can't be used. The vessel now cannot be used for what the vessel is for. And then he took it one step further. He was talking, you should know, to his son, who was a prince himself at the time. And of course, at this point, he was a monk, so he wasn't a prince anymore. But he was brought up to be a prince or even a king. And does anyone know the primary purpose through history and geography of a government? It's actually relatively easy to define this. There's one specific thing that a government has in order for it to be considered a true state government. That is a monopoly on murder. Yes, that's what a state has. That's what a government has. That's what makes it an effective government. And different civilizations have come to this point at different points in history, but they have a monopoly on murder. Now that means, of course, that Rahula, a Kshatriya, a warrior, was basically being trained for war. And so he knew war very well, even at the age of 7. He knew that that was his job. That's what he was going to have to do. And so the Buddha, who was brought up in just the same way, could talk to him about war. And he said, if there's an elephant trainer who trains a war elephant for the king, and he watches that elephant in battle, and he sees that elephant uses his body to fight, and his feet to fight, and his tusks to fight, but he still holds back his trunk, then he knows this elephant hasn't given up his life. This elephant isn't willing to do anything for the purpose of war. But if that elephant goes into battle and uses his feet and his body and his tusks and his trunk, his most vulnerable part, for the battle, then the elephant trainer knows, this elephant has totally given up his life. He'll do anything for the sake of war. And then, now this is the kind of talk that Rahula had heard from when he was a kid. He was a little kid, still a kid, but when he was a toddler, he'd even been hearing this. This is his job. That's what an elephant should do. But the Buddha then turned the entire thing on its head, which actually means turning it upright, and said, in just the same way, if there's a person of training, a person who has taken this path, and they would tell a deliberate lie, then there's nothing they wouldn't do if given the appropriate opportunity. They have completely given up their life, their honor. And so the point made is that if we're a person who would tell a deliberate lie, then if the appropriate circumstances come, and of course, when we're in our nice, comfortable circumstances, maybe we wouldn't actually kill someone. But the point that he's making is, okay, that's because you're in nice circumstances. Good for you. Congratulations. But what about when those circumstances change? You might be in other circumstances. You might be in dangerous circumstances, and someone who you respect might tell you to kill someone. The point he's making is, given the appropriate circumstances, if you're a person who would tell a deliberate lie, there's no evil you wouldn't do. It's a very firm teaching, a very strong teaching, an uncompromised teaching given to a 7-year-old. And as I say, they got it. Not that they followed it, it's hard to follow. But that, to me, is actually the point. That's the point of the story. That's why this is the first teaching he gave. That this is the basis, this commitment, this exploration, this attempt to find out how to be honest, to stop telling lies. That's the foundation of this practice. Because otherwise, if not for that, then truth is seen as the enemy. If truth is the enemy, everything's upside down. There's no hope. So it's our duty to come to the point when it's possible for us to at least attempt, to try, to continually strive, to gain the skill. This isn't something which is just a rule, here it is. What is a deliberate lie anyway? If you start paying attention, it turned out to be very hard to know what a deliberate lie actually is. It's hard to know. Of course, sometimes it's easy to know. Sometimes it is easy to know. But a lot of the time, it's very hard to tell. And so it's our job to investigate it, to attempt this and attempt that and gain these skills. And as we gain the skills, it's the gaining of the skills, the actual gaining of the actual skills, that allows us to then be in that terrifying situation and stand firm. We have to gain those skills first. But we don't know when we're going to be in that situation, especially the way the world's going now. So it's essential for us to use every day to gain those skills. So I'd say the most important point is that we shouldn't simplify this down to some kind of formula. It's not about a formula. It's about a very stern teaching about skill building, about learning how to be honest, not merely forcing ourselves to do the thing that we currently believe honesty is. And so I'd say that the point you bring up is excellent. It's true. I've been through that sort of thing. Very confusing to me to be told in no uncertain terms, lie to me, or I will lie to you. That's another one. That's very painful. Just for your future reference, I lie to you. That's extremely confusing. And that sort of thing comes, exactly. That sort of thing comes to us. Don't believe what I say in earnest. What happens to our minds then? It's very confusing. And it's that turns everything upside down and deludes us. So it's important for us to look at this seriously without merely turning to a simplistic set of rules and gain the skill of understanding how to lie, to deceive, less and less as each day goes by. Does that make sense? Does that relate to the point you're bringing up?
I think so. Because I got so good at it, I had a very intimate relationship with lying.
Yeah.
So I did learn to understand it more as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting here has certainly strengthened and built skills for me, which I use a lot. Thank you.
3 minutes. Sorry, off.
That's perfect.
Yes.
How can you tell the difference between a situation in which it's enough to just be truthful with yourself,
Yeah.
and a situation where it's important to confess to others?
Believe it or not, this is the next part of that sutra. This is the next part of the teaching I gave to Rahula. So, well done. And his answer is, again, a difficult answer. I really like, there's a high school teacher who I really like. He says this again. I don't know if other people say this too, but he likes to say, difficult questions get difficult answers, which I really appreciate that. And so this is a difficult answer. And so true to early Buddhism, it's an answer that makes perfect sense logically. You can hear it and know, oh yes, that's right on. But then you try to practice it and it just dissolves away as you need to replace that mere intellectual understanding with something you can live by. So the point he makes is this, and this part of the sutra goes on for pages. How did the 7-year-old handle this supremely boring discourse that follows the wonderful illustration of the metaphor? But apparently he did. So, and they did. Because it actually, those stories put you in this state of desperation. I don't know how to do this at all. And you realize that. And so at that point, he can take him through a more technical set of instructions. Now, I can't do it in 1 minute, so I'm going to have to abbreviate it dramatically. It's better if it's not abbreviated, of course, but that's how it goes today. So he said, fundamentally, every time you do anything, well, he actually started with another metaphor, which we don't have, but he asked Rahula, what is the purpose of a mirror? And if you ask adults, they say, but if you ask a 7-year-old, they say, and this is true, try it. They'll say, to reflect things. They reflect, mirrors reflect. which is the right answer. And again, if you ask kindergartners, it's just no idea what could it be for. How would you know that? I don't even actually, I'm not asking the question in my head right now, I'm just looking at you. So, am I right? Isn't that true? That's my experience with kindergarten. But a 7-year-old, 8-year-old answers to reflect. And the Buddha said, and the purpose of your mind is to reflect. And so every time you do anything, reflect. Does this hurt myself? If I do this, does that hurt me? If I do this, does that hurt others? And if you find that it does, be honest with yourself about that. And if you find that it would hurt yourself or hurt others, don't do it. But if you find that it doesn't hurt yourself or others, then you're free to do it. And the point that you get if you go through the many paragraphs, on and on and on, it's hard to explain right now why it's so boring, but it goes on and on and on. The point that you gather is, oh, he actually means that you're supposed to do this all the time. It's such a simple statement that this is, again, a skill. You're supposed to practice this. You're supposed to get better and better at understanding if what you're thinking about doing would hurt someone. And that happens by reflecting repeatedly. So again, I think oftentimes we ask questions like this and what we want is a simple formula. But in my experience, that's not a useful solution to the problem. The useful solution is fortitude, patience, and practice. Repeatedly reflect. I am considering doing this. Would this hurt people, myself or others? And then we have the fortitude if we discover, yeah, it probably would. And not do it. It's incredibly useful advice. And I think it's the appropriate answer to such a significant question. All right. So this now is our chance to talk about ways that we can be of service in the world, things we can do to make the world a better place, ways we can make a difference, take action that isn't damaging but is on the contrary beneficial. So, do you have some for us?